Thank you very much. Let's just make sure this works to start with. That's on?
Yep.
Hello? Don't know. I'll clip it on. Good evening, everybody. Thank you, Lisa. As you said, my name is Adrian Kingwell, as you can see up there. I run a company called Mezzo Labs. Mezzo Labs is a web analytics agency based in London. And I'm going to tell you a little bit today about what we do and what the opportunities are to work in web analytics. In an agency, I can't tell you too much about working in web analytics on the client side, but we'll discuss what the differences are between working in an agency and working in a client. It's great that so many of you have turned up. That's fantastic. But I don't want you to feel that this is like a lecture, because I'm not a lecturer. I'm just a guy that runs some business, and I'm really here to sort of explain a bit about what we do and to give you a chance to ask me questions. So don't be shy. If you've got questions, if it's in the middle of what I'm saying, just sort of put your hand up and say, "I'm sorry, Adrian, but can you explain that a bit more clearly? I didn't quite get that." That's absolutely fine. I'm going to talk for about 30 minutes or so, and then at the end of it, second 30 minutes, from about 6:30 onwards, we'll have about 30 minutes worth of questions. So you could just ask me whatever, and just if it's to do with web analytics, I'll be able to give you a pretty clear answer. If it's just more broadly to do with working in the digital space, which I also have experience of, you can ask me about that. So if you're thinking, I'm not sure whether it's really web analytics that's my thing, I'd really be interested in working in a creative agency, what are the differences, you can ask me about stuff like that as well. Right, let's take you through what I'm going to do. First of all, a quick introduction to who we are, Metsu Labs. As it says there, we are the UK's largest independent web analytics agency. Now, we're still a very small company. There's about 15 of us based in Farringdon in the centre of London. But there's not a lot of, it's a niche sector. It's a small sector, web analytics. It's growing, but there aren't many dedicated web analytics agencies. Very often, web analytics is done by a larger agency, so it'd be one department of a larger agency. But there's been a lot of small agencies springing up, usually started by sort of one guy that thinks that they can actually start their own business, a bit like me, and then adding a few more employees, and then eventually you grow to a certain size. But we're the largest independent web analytics agency in the UK, based in Farringdon in London. We're specialists in web analytics. We don't do anything else. So we don't do pay-per-click, we don't do SEO, we don't do web design, we don't do content, we don't do marketing, we just measure websites. That's what we do. When I say websites, what I really mean is we measure the digital channel's performance. So we measure anything to do with getting online people to a website or a mobile app and getting them to do something, hopefully buy something, but it may not be. It could be just an engagement thing. We're what we call an inside-out company. A lot of companies spend a lot of money on marketing. We don't spend a whole lot of money on marketing. We spend a lot of money on our staff, because if our staff work well and if our staff are happy, then they'll go out and they'll talk to our customers who work in big corporations, and they'll get excited about analytics and say, "Hey, you could do this and we can do that for you." And then I figure that that's actually the best kind of marketing I could possibly get. If my staff are happy, then they become the best sort of advertising. So we're inside out because I focus on them first, and I know if I get that right, then the outside world, the marketing of the business, the kind of the business development, will be much, much easier to do. I can't make happy clients with unhappy staff, so we focus on people's happiness first. I won't tell you too much about exactly what we do in that space, because it would take at least another hour. We're also what we call a talent incubator. So we assume that people arrive at Mezzo not knowing everything there is to know about web analytics, and they can't, because it's changing too rapidly, and you'll get experience in one area and not in another. So we're a talent incubator. We will take people that have talent and we'll help them develop that talent. So we'll take them up to the next level, whatever that might be. We help them on a journey. We know that at some point they'll probably leave and go off and do other things. We know that. But hopefully, when they're with us, they'll do great quality work, they'll learn a lot of stuff, they'll be really happy, and then that'll be good for my business. So we're a talent incubator. We're in some ways a logical extension of a university. A university's job is to train you up, to a certain level so that you pass an exam and you know some stuff about a particular subject. Our job is to take people from that level and take them up to the next level so they become a professional in their sector. We work for banks. In fact, I'll be honest, 80% of our business is in banking. So that's selling credit cards. We do a lot of work with Barclaycard and Barclays and HSBC and TSB. Banks are great customers, by the way, for the simple reason that they got lots of money. And they're kind of hard work to deal with. You know, they're a bit sort of stodgy and a bit slow, but once you get used to that and you work with them, they're fantastic customers. And you can't run a business with bad customers. That just is never going to work. So I'm very grateful to the banks. And also actually in the UK, if you think about it, most of the banks are concentrated in the City of London, in the Square Mile, and in Canary Wharf. So I don't think there's any other industry in the UK where all the major players are sort of squeezed into like a square mile or 2 square miles. It's just incredible. And plus, London being a financial hub, you'd be stupid to target any other sector initially. We've got a few retailers on board. We're now branching out into broadcasters and publishers. We've just won Discovery Channel, and there's some trade publications who have some websites that we're looking to measure. Universities. University of Sunderland have had us have a look at their websites and trying to see how they can actually attract students from China, which of course is pretty difficult if you don't have a Chinese language website. They've asked us to come in and help them. And charities, suddenly out of nowhere, the charity sector suddenly seems to be very much focused on analysing their digital performance. So that's sort of what we do at a high level. If somebody says, well, really, what is it that you do? We answer questions about marketing and we help improve the performance of the business. We're not too highbrow about doing this stuff. At the end of the day, if our measurement doesn't improve business performance, then we're kind of wasting our time doing it. So we can measure a lot of stuff. I could tell you what the bounce rate is on a website. I could tell you time on page. I could tell you what the customer journey is. But if it doesn't help business people sell more stuff or do something with their customers, then it doesn't have any real business impact. You know, I could look at University of Sunderland's website and say, oh, there's all these people looking at this particular content, but if it doesn't help them acquire students from markets that they're struggling to reach, then it's just interesting but not really important. So we answer questions about marketing. A lot of the questions are like, they start off with being, well, how many visitors are we getting? What are they doing on the site? So fairly basic things. But pretty soon it develops onto the next stage, which is, well, why are they doing that? Why are people leaving the application process of a credit card at this point? Why aren't we converting more customers? Why is our marketing not working like it should be, like it is in the plan? So what we're trying to do is to explain the why questions next. Then we can move beyond that and we can answer what-if questions. So once we know why people are doing stuff, we can build a model, and then we can say, if we change a few of these things in the model, like we spend more marketing money on this particular channel, what if we do that, then hopefully something else will happen. So we can build, from the model, we can build a prediction of the future. Going on from that, we can use the data for even more exciting things around marketing automation. So we can actually start to produce personalized messages to marketing messages to individuals, or certainly to segments. We can target them and we can increase the chance of getting them to become customers. So we can do some really exciting things once we've got a handle on the data, but it all starts with questions. A few years ago, our marketing data lived in separate worlds. And I'll be honest with you, these are just examples. So Adobe Analytics, I don't know if you know Adobe Analytics. Do you know Google Analytics? Yeah. So Google Analytics is very good at the mid-tier level and down because it's free. If you want to go to, if you're a major bank, you've either got to pay Google some more money to get to Google Analytics Premium, or you'd go to Adobe. There's also Web Trends and there's Core Metrics and a few other players. But Adobe is the major player at the top end. You know Adobe probably more for its Adobe Acrobat and Adobe Creative Suite, but their marketing suite products are very popular with major corporates. So our world was very much this. What we would do is we would see that a client has Adobe Analytics or Google Analytics or whatever, and we put tags on pages. Does everybody here know the principle of how web analytics kind of works? I'll explain it very briefly if you're not familiar with it. We put a tag. It's written in JavaScript. It's a piece of code, and it goes into the HTML of the page. Every time that page loads in somebody's browser, that tag goes ping, and it sends a message to a server in the cloud. It counts one page view, possibly one visitor. And then what it'll do is it'll start to string all those different pings together as you move through the site, and you can start to see a customer journey going through. You can start to count volumes of people going through. You can do some calculations, and you can work out what the time on the site was from the time of the first ping to the time of the last ping. That's the time on the site. So you can, things like Adobe Analytics can extrapolate all of these things going ping into some analytics about performance on the website. That was our world. There was the world of DoubleClick. Does anyone know what DoubleClick is? No? DoubleClick is, actually it's a Google technology that measures advertising online. So when you see a banner ad, and that banner ad loads in a page, there's a DoubleClick tag that fires, that says that is one page, that's one ad impression. That's one time that a person has seen a banner ad. Doesn't mean to say that you really looked at it really hard. It doesn't mean to say you clicked on it, but you've seen it. There was an impression there. When you click on it, then another tag, DoubleClick tag, will fire on the website that you've clicked through to. That way they know what the click-throughs are. So these are two different technologies, but they work in roughly similar ways, right? They both use JavaScript tags firing off, and then there's a system counting it. This was used by media people, what we call paid media people. So what they will do is they will spend advertising budget to put banner ads all around the internet, or do whatever they have to do, paid media. And they will be counting the effectiveness of their advertising through DoubleClick. And then you have the on-site people, the people that are involved with content, working with content management systems, looking at customer journeys, looking at creative on-site. And they'll be looking at Adobe Analytics, and they'll be seeing traffic arriving through different channels, and they'll be working out where the site is not working properly, and they'll be trying to look at the numbers and go, this page isn't working properly, or that button is in the wrong place, or something like that. And then at the back end, CVM or CRM, these are sort of back office systems. This is where customer data sits within any organization. So once somebody sees an advert, they click on it, they come through to the site, they buy something, then the record of all their details, their name, their email address, what they bought, that all sits in some back office system. Whoops. Those worlds used to be quite separate, different systems not really connected. So we focused on the middle one. What happened was, more and more they started to become connected, that information would swap over. So something that's happening in this world would appear in this world and could be transferred across to that world. So you could look at a customer record and you could see what the customer has done on the website and which channel they came through, which advert they clicked on, which is kind of interesting because then you can see the end-to-end journey. And once you've got an idea of who the customer is, you can see, oh, they also bought this product and that product, maybe offline or maybe through different channels. You can start to stitch all this stuff together. So in the last couple of years, my market has changed completely. Actually, I should say something else. When I started Mezzo, which was 11 years ago, this didn't exist. So some people ask me, sort of, what was your idea when you started your company? Well, it wasn't this, because it didn't exist. So this has evolved in the last, gosh, eight years ago, I saw the first versions of Adobe Analytics coming through and the first versions of Web Trends being deployed. So it's taken 8 years from very basic web analytics to evolve into what it is today. These things are moving pretty fast. So what we've noticed is that there's lots of systems out there, all pumping out data, and they're all starting to become interconnected. And suddenly our role has gone from being, oh, just measure the website, to, hang on, if we don't do this properly, that this system here is going to start affecting all these other systems out here. All of our reports are going to be wrong, all of our marketing is going to be wrong, all the decisions we're making about who we should be targeting is all going to be wrong. We need to think about how the data moves between these different systems. So suddenly we've gone from having a very niche job to having a very kind of architectural job. You know, we have to look at the data architecture of how all these systems interconnect. This is an old slide. This slide was taken about, these products we put together about 3 years ago. And it's changed. Some of these products have maybe merged together because one company has bought another. And in other spaces, they've expanded out. But it's not a bad way of looking at the market. Web and mobile analytics, that used to be our world up there, and there's quite a few players there. Then suddenly this thing called tag management systems appeared a few years ago, and these are systems that manage all the different JavaScript tags that are firing. So there were stacks of those. Then you've got email marketing, you've got testing and optimization. Do you know A/B testing, where you can display two different versions of the same advert? You can see which one is performing better. And that's I'll explain in a second. That's the logical extension of analytics. Once you've looked at the numbers, you think, hang on, I think we've got a problem with this advert. Maybe we should do some A/B testing on the advert to see which one is working better. So there's lots of A/B testing platforms, optimization platforms. Social listening, obviously social media didn't exist 8 years ago. Twitter wasn't around 8 years ago. It's 10 years old, but I mean, I don't remember it being like a serious thing. Yeah, it wasn't a big thing. Maybe Facebook was just starting back then. But anyway, so social listening, that sort of sprung up in the last sort of 8 years or so. Ad serving I've just talked about, so that was the world of DoubleClick. The dashboards and visualization, in fact, there's many more products than that. Auditing software to make sure that everything's running correctly. There's real-time analytics, which has come out of nowhere. This is sort of looking at the stream of data that's coming off websites and responding instantly. There's data mining tools, which, I'll be honest with you, is an area that in our company, we've traditionally left to one side, but we're actually getting much, much more involved in that. So there's lots of talk about big data and machine learning and artificial intelligence. If I ignore that, then I'm missing out on a huge opportunity. So my company is slowly moving that direction. We've just employed our first data scientist through University of Westminster, actually. So data mining, usability and click mapping, heat mapping tools, I'll talk a little bit about that in a second, and sort of competitor research or sort of customer feedback type platforms. So the whole analytics landscape has a lot of tools in it. And from your point of view, you're probably thinking, crikey, where do I look? What tool is the one I need to learn? You can't learn all of them. So you need to make some decisions at some point about which direction interests you, and then sort of get your hands on some of these tools and have a look at what's really going on there. Web analytics roughly falls into about 4 different categories, in my view. There's a lot of work that goes on around the kind of, if you like, the architectural piece that we do. So we try and look at the big picture, and we try and look at where the data's going. So there's a lot of sort of visioning and roadmap and sort of high-level consulting that we do, which traditionally would be done by companies like Accenture or KPMG, but they don't have the domain expertise that we would have. So we're getting more pulled into that world. There's the data collection. So this is placing tags on pages, writing the JavaScript that collects the data, or tapping into other systems and pulling the data out. So it's quite a technical job. It's not heavy-duty technical, but it's, you need to be comfortable with a little bit of JavaScript. There's analysis, and in here you've got sort of really 2 types of analysts. You've got marketing analysts. These are people that will be quite comfortable looking at, in Adobe Analytics or Google Analytics, visitors, looking at data that's quite fluid in a way, because every day the website stats change, and people might go into the site one day, go away, come back, use a mobile device, So the marketing analysts have to be quite sensitive to what real people do. But then there's more quantitative analysis using tools like SAS and SPSS, that kind of like hardcore. A lot of those analysts are really looking at the back-end customer systems where the data is a bit more static and a bit more sort of structured. But there's lots of things that can be done there. A lot of times it's just merely producing dashboards, data visualizations of what's happening for our clients. And the final piece, as I mentioned before, is optimization, the A/B testing. And doing media optimization. So I'll be honest, that's the point at which all of this makes money for the client. So all of this is really interesting and really useful, but until you actually do some of that stuff, you haven't actually improved the website. You haven't actually improved digital performance. The third thing there, personalization, is something that a lot of people talk about. Very few people are actually doing, but that's where people want to get to. When we start with a client, we ask them a bunch of questions, and we produce a nice-looking heat map like that identifies where their weak points are and all the stuff that they're doing in analytics. We will say, hang on, your ambition is to be the world's best, but you're not doing this and you're not doing this. So which is good for us because then we can focus on the bits that need fixing. So the first part that we do when we go into a client is to ask them lots of questions and give them a view of their world, and then we've got an idea of what we need to do to fix things. And we're going to take them on a journey that looks roughly like this. The first thing is we've got to produce good standard reports for them. Good, what some people call MI, which is management information. So this is how many visitors do we get, how many sales do we make, what's our conversion rate, what's our average cost per sale, things like that. It's fairly sort of basic stuff that they should know, but we just give them good quality data and good quality reports. Then what we do is we move them up onto dynamic dashboards, and they can start to make data-driven decisions. This is sort of the next step. Is usually down here they're just looking at the data and going, oh, that's useful to know. Here what they're doing is they're saying, according to this data, we've got a problem here, we need to be doing something about it. They're actually using the data to make changes on the website. I'll be honest, a lot of companies, they think that they know everything there is to know about their own website, and they make changes because they feel it's the right thing to do. They might be right, they might be wrong, but they're not using the data to drive that decision. They should be looking at the data and saying, hang on, if we made a change here, it would make a big impact to sales. And here's another change we want to make, it won't make any difference to sales, so we shouldn't be wasting our time doing it. So we try and get people to make data-driven decisions. Automation is the next stage, where essentially you're using the data to, it's like machine learning. It's using the data to optimize the model. So if we give someone £50 off to buy a product, will that make them buy? It does make them buy. Okay, if we give them £10 off, will it make them buy? No, they won't buy at £10 off. So somewhere in between 50 and 10 is the optimum. We're spending too much at 50, we're spending too little at 10. Where should it be? £20, £30, £40? Machine learning will work that out. So the automation will use the data to start doing self-optimization faster than people can do it. There's integration, and finally there's artificial intelligence. And I'll be honest with you, nobody's doing real artificial intelligence. I mean, to an extent, companies like Uber would do it, but that's really rare. No banks are doing it, as far as I know. We spend quite a lot of time defining key performance indicators. Presumably you cover key performance indicators in the class, yeah? Often misused. Like, there's a lot of companies that go, oh yeah, we've got like 20 KPIs, but they don't have 20 KPIs. Key performance indicators are very specific things that really will affect performance. I'll give you an example of a key performance indicator. Would be conversion rate on the website. It's the volume, how many people visit the site to how many sales do you get. So that should be a KPI. If that percentage starts going down, you've got a problem on the website, and you'll never make enough sales. So what we do is we define all their KPIs and where we're going to gather the data from. Building dashboards, as I mentioned, lots of tools out there. It could start with Excel. Everyone's got Excel, but Excel's a little bit fragile. Like, people kind of break it a little bit, and we'll do a beautiful dashboard in the latest version of Excel, and then we'll send it out to a bank, and they say, oh, we've got a really old version of Excel on our desktop. Your spreadsheet doesn't work. So there's real limitations with using Excel for stuff like this. You can't throw huge amounts of data at it. It will just start breaking. So there are other tools out there. What we use is Tableau, we use ClickFolio, we use a tool called ClickView, and these are all good, and they look beautiful, and which is very important in marketing, by the way. If your dashboards don't look beautiful, then marketing people won't look at them. There are plenty of other tools out there. Heat mapping. There are tools out there that will actually look at where the cursor is on the page, and then it'll produce a map of where the most commonly hovered parts of the page are. These tools have been around for a little while, but they're always really interesting because you suddenly realize that people spend a lot of time on the navigation and maybe a lot of time looking at the major banner, but they're completely missing the stuff on the right-hand side. This is quite a common heat map for a Western audience. In China and Japan, very often the heat map's the other way around. It's something to do with the way that people look at pages. So there is a cultural bias in there slightly, but it's interesting to work out whether people are actually using the website in the way that you think. So we do that kind of level of analysis. Oh, right, okay, now I'm on to the part about the people that we employ. People ask me, what kind of person makes a good analyst? What kind of person makes a good web analyst? And actually, it's quite hard to work out what makes a good web analyst. They don't have to have a mathematics degree. They don't have to be terribly geeky. In fact, if they're too kind of techie, they won't be good web analysts because they won't understand that all these numbers indicate what real people do and that real people don't behave in a logical way all the time. What you need is somebody that has a mixture of a number of things. They need to kind of understand marketing. They need to understand, about pay-per-click and about SEO and about social media and about all those things. They need to have some sort of mathematical ability to look at numbers and go, oh, I could do this simple calculation and we can work out something. They need to have a sort of a business sense, to be honest with you. It's almost like common sense. You can't really teach it, but being able to spot the difference between something that's important and not important to a customer. If you've got that sort of mix, you can have a very good conversation with our clients about what they need to change in their marketing. The people that don't do well are too purist, are too kind of, I've got a PhD in mathematics, so I should know about this stuff. And you go, well, you have, and that's great, but honestly, the client doesn't really need that degree of detail. They just need to get to a business answer very quickly. Motivated is really, really important. There are two types of people, as Lisa mentioned before. Two types of people. There are those people that go like, okay, show me what you're going to give me. And there are those people that are like, oh, I can see some opportunity, I'll go and do it. There are people that wait to be told, and those people that don't wait to be told, they just get stuck in. We need the people that don't wait to be told. If their motivation is really strong, they go, I had a look at the numbers, and I can see that there's a problem on this page. So I looked at those numbers, and I said, there's got to be a problem in here somewhere. And I found out that it was all the people coming from natural search are never going to buy. And I found that out. If you take that kind of gold nugget of information to a customer and say, there's a problem on this page and it's with these people and I found out why and here's the numbers, the client will just go, oh my God, you're amazing. So I want people like that, that don't wait to be told, and I think actually most companies would want people like that. So the motivation is really important. Curiosity, are you curious? Do you want to drill into something? Has something just made you go, that's not quite right, and then you drill into it. That's more important, to be honest, than how intelligent you are and how how technical you are with the tools. So this is kind of going back to to my organization thing earlier, or what web analytics looks like. This is how my company's structured. So I've got a small consultancy team, a technical team of people that put tags on pages and work out where data's coming from. I've got a team of insight analysts. Their job is not to just put the numbers into graphs and charts, it's to find insight. The insight would be, here's something about your website you didn't know. And they also come out with hypotheses, which is, well, we're not actually sure what's happening, but it might be this or it might be that. It's worth testing. When they come up with a hypothesis, they pass it over to the optimization team, who then run an A/B test to work out what's working and what's not working. So I can take, in my small company, I can take people from the beginning of the journey to the end of a journey and say, we're getting the data to tell you what to improve on your website. And actually, that journey is quite rewarding. It's quite, like, from your personal point of view, if you just look at numbers, it's okay. But if you can actually make a difference with it, it's really kind of cool. You see those changes on Barclays' website? We did that. We actually found out that there was a problem there. We made that change. It's kind of a cool feeling. It's a sense of reward. Now, this is the important slide. Okay, there is a massive skills shortage in our sector because it's growing faster than people are being trained up to do it. And what happens, basic economics students, what happens when demand outstrips supply? What happens to price? Anyone? It goes up. And it pains me to say this, but web analysts on relatively little experience are being massively overpaid to do their job because there's not enough of them around. So anybody with a little bit of experience can start saying, the money better be good, otherwise I'm not working for you. So this is the way that it would work in my business, roughly, and this piece is usually missing in all other businesses. In fact, I could almost say that these two pieces are missing because most companies are just going, oh, we need somebody really experienced, let's go and buy them. And actually, the opportunity for everybody is to make sure that this area is covered off. So I worked out in my business that if I kept employing these guys, I wouldn't make any money because I'm spending it all on salary. So what I've got to do, well, actually, not just salary, recruitment fees. You probably don't know this, but if I need to find somebody, I go to a recruitment agent, and they're a bit like an estate agent, right? So they sell, what they're doing is they're sort of selling jobs on behalf of me, and they will charge 20% of somebody's first year's salary. Now, if that person has cost £50,000, 20% of £50,000 is £10,000. That's a lot of money. So I don't like spending anything with those people. But I have to sometimes. But I worked out that if I had some decent conversations with a few universities who were producing the kind of graduates that would be really good for us, I'm in business. So we created an internship program. And that's sort of indicative of the kind of, I'll explain about that in just a second. But essentially, this is 6 months. So after 6 months, you could get to executive level. And then a year as a junior exec, you could become a senior exec. A year as a senior exec is possibly slightly longer, you could become a manager. So, and a few years beyond that ahead. But nevertheless, in a relatively short period of time, and I will be honest with you, there's no other part of digital marketing, there's no other part of marketing, period, because that will include offline as well, where you can accelerate that quickly. And that's all to do with the shortage of supply. And the shortage of supply is global, and actually people come to London in order to get the experience. So London, I would have said, is probably, as a city, is probably it has the world's most web analysts in one concentration. Even America doesn't have quite the same concentration of web analysts in one place. So this is the internship program. We start taking applications from the end of April. We're only looking for people with an MSc. We're not looking for anybody with a bachelor's degree at this stage, just because it kind of makes sure that they're like career ready, that if they've put themselves on a master's program, it tells me that they've taken that career step towards this as where they're being committed. MSCs in digital marketing and analytics, preferably digital marketing and analytics in one MSc, but sometimes we'll take people that have done digital marketing with an analytics component or analytics with a digital marketing component. Okay, we do pay, like a lot of places don't. It's £12.50 an hour, and it's by the hour because a lot of interns want some flexibility. They sometimes say, oh, I can only work 3 days this week because I've got to finish my dissertation. Is that okay? I'm like, fine. You just tell me how many hours you've worked, and that's what we pay you. We take it very seriously. It's basically graduate recruitment because it's training for the exec role. I wouldn't give somebody an internship if it was just work experience. I don't have anybody that's just making the coffee or refilling the photocopier. That's not what it's about. It's about, we put people onto billable work as quickly as possible. Billable work is meaningful work that I can charge for to our clients. Why do I do that? Why do I put meaningful work in the hands of someone that's relatively inexperienced? Because if they adapt to it really quickly, that's a very good indicator that they're going to reach that level. If I give them sort of like, not meaningful work, it doesn't really tell me that they've got the right stuff to make it to the end of the 6-month program. And then the final piece, work visas are available for an executive role. Work visas are really tough to get now, really tough. But we're in such a shortage of supply that we will go through that process. We've just gone through the process for a woman who came from Colombia. She joined our internship program that completed in December. We started the application process in November. It's now March, and we got the kind of okay from the Home Office. And we had to do all kinds of stupid stuff. I mean, they make you do all these things which are completely ridiculous, but we've done it. And now we know how it's done. We can do it again for the right candidate. And by the way, the work visa is obviously not for the intern. It's for the exec. It's once you've got the permanent position, we will arrange the visa for you. Julia's story, right. I shouldn't say Julia, it's Yulia, right? I can't pronounce her saying, Chwara. Yeah, she's Romanian. Julia joined the MSc program in Digital Marketing and Analytics in Regent's University in the centre of London about 2 years ago, I think. And I was, just like I'm doing now with you, I would go into Regent's University and I'd talk about various subjects and judge their coursework and stuff like that, and they sort of got to know me. And then I said, right, we got this internship program, and at that time we could only take one person, and she came on board and she was brilliant. She worked really hard, she was really focused, and she just had this appetite for like getting stuck in and doing things. And so great, it was easy for us to make a decision about Julia to become a permanent employee. She spent a year being an exec. I should scroll up actually and show you this. She spent a year doing that, and we've just given her a promotion to be senior exec. And I've got no doubt that she'll be a manager in 2 years' time at the most, possibly less. And she is 25. So it's proof that the model does work, the opportunity is there. Right, a quick word, and this is the second to last slide, a quick word on agency side or client side. I don't know whether you know this or you don't know this. Basically, there's a big, two kinds of company that you can work for. You can work with an agency like us. This is all we do. Yeah, we fill, we're just extra technical expertise for what we call clients. A client could be Barclays, it could be, I don't know, Nike. It could be anybody that's got a brand that's selling stuff. And we will come in and we'll do a job. Now, there's lots of agencies out there. Some of them build websites. Some of them do advertising campaigns. Some of them do branding. These are all agencies. They're a bit like consultancies. In fact, if you ask me what's the difference, I can't really tell you, to be honest, because they sort of blur, one blurs into the other. You could say a consultancy is a bit more high level, but anyway. It's possible that you could work in an agency for one part of your career and then you move over to client side in another part of your career. There's no rules about these things. When you join one, it doesn't mean to say, oh, that's it, you're going to be an agency person for the rest of your life. You can do what you want. If you've give the skills, you can move between the two. There are pros and cons between the two. I'm going to throw this out to the audience. Let's make it interactive. So give me a pro, a reason why it would be good to work on the client side as opposed to the agency side. Why would you want to work for Barclays? Go on, go ahead. That's right. You get like an insider's view as to how it is. I think the danger of an agency is that if you're always sitting on the outside, you never truly understand how you sell credit cards or how you sell life insurance or something like that. Yeah. Anybody else? Another benefit for work? Yes, go ahead.
Outsource your work. So from my experience, like the agency makes it hard to do.
That's a very good point. We do all the time. Yeah. So you can. In some ways, you could sort of pick and choose a little bit. So you're looking at all the work that needs to be done, and you're saying, right, agency can do that bit, I can do that bit. Yeah, you could be selective. You said as well. Yeah, the agency always gets the blame when it goes wrong. Yeah, that's true as well. I think other advantages of working for an agency, if you're working in Barclays, you're in a big company, they've got lots of benefits. I mean, they've got a massive restaurant and a gym and a social club, and they've got all those fringe benefits. I would struggle to offer all of that stuff. You've also got opportunity to say, you know what, I don't really like analytics that much. Can I try pay-per-click? And your manager will say, yeah, okay, let's put you on a pay-per-click account. Whereas I can't do that. We do what we do. So there, in some ways, you have limited opportunities to change radically when you're in an agency. That's not always true, but in an agency like ours, we can't offer stuff that we don't do. On the other side, what are the advantages of working in agency side? Yes? You don't have to talk to customers. Oh, you mean you don't have to talk to the end? Well, yes, I guess that's true. Although actually it wouldn't be a bad thing if we did, to be honest. Yeah. Yes?
When you see more different companies, so you can compare, you can progress better. You can see the company, you can see your client with fresh eyes, so you can develop new ideas what they have.
I think that's the main reason. Some people call it variety. You could get bored working in Barclays forever, but you won't get bored working in an agency because there should be a constantly different clients. the same would be true of the tools that you'd use. So if we've got 3 different clients, we could have 3 different tool sets. So you'll get some experience on Google Analytics, Adobe Analytics, Web Trends, and suddenly your CV is starting to look pretty powerful because you can say, yeah, I know all of that stuff. But when you work in a client, it tends to be you're stuck with whatever they've chosen. Sometimes they've got some pretty awful old tool, and you're stuck with it, and that's not going to be good for your career. So yeah, it's a good point. Somebody else had their hand up somewhere. No, or did I just say? Ah, yes.
I'm not stuck with the politics and the slow motion processes.
Yeah, now, some people quite like that, and some people can't stand, I can't stand it. It just drives me nuts. And I think if you like fast pace, then agency is definitely where it's at, because people are throwing stuff at you all the time and going, I know it's 5:30 on a Friday evening and you want to go home, but could you just do this? And you just go, oh, all right, I'll do it. And you kind of get used to that sort of, stuff happens all the time. You'll never be bored. So yeah, you're right. That it suits some people, but it doesn't suit others. Okay, so there's 2 sides to it, and I'd honestly say in your career you will probably do both. Up to you. Right, we'll end with some top tips. Okay, I've come slightly over time. My toppest tip is this: learn Google Analytics. Learn Google Analytics. If you want to get into web analytics and you haven't done Google Analytics, it's going to be really hard for you to pass that first interview. Okay, when you get interviewed for your first job, the first thing that because you've got no previous work, I'll assume you've got no previous work experience, right? Someone looks at your CV and they say, oh, it's kind of interesting, you went to Southampton University. What did you do there? Oh, I did digital marketing. Oh, that's good. What did you learn? And you could sort of theoretically say, I learned all this stuff. And then very quickly, the manager's going to say, yeah, but what tools did you use? What actually did you use? And then you need to be able to say, I use this tool and I know that that's going to be really useful for you. If you do Google Analytics, pretty much it's going to be useful to anybody that you have an interview with. Even if they've got Adobe Analytics, they'll still be impressed that you've got your head around Google Analytics. Google Analytics is free. There's loads of training videos online. There's a huge amount of Q&A type blog posts about it. So you can learn really quickly in Google Analytics. The other things are a bit sort of softer in a way. The next one is understand the commercial impact of analytics. I mentioned this before, that it's only when you reach the end of that line, when you're actually doing the optimization, that you're really making a proper commercial difference to the customer. That don't be too purist about it. Try and understand what difference it makes. Try and sort of get beneath the surface. So don't say, visitors went down this month. Go look at what's going on and what impact that had. Visitors went down this month, therefore you lost 1,000 sales with an average value of £100, therefore it was £100,000. Work it through to the point where there's dollar signs associated with it, and then you're in the right zone. The next one, which I've sort of mentioned before, focus and be passionate. Be passionate, get excited about it. It is really interesting. My degree's in English, right? I am not like you guys. I'm good with words. I'm not good with numbers. I'm not naturally, I shouldn't be doing this, okay? But it doesn't matter, because I think it's kind of cool, and I get into it, and I'm like, fine. And so you've got it is when you get into it, it is really interesting, and you should explore it and get a feel for it. By the way, if you don't find it interesting, then please don't go any further. Find another job, and focus. You saw that slide I had with all those tools on it, which was out of date, as I mentioned. Pick a few things that you think, I'd really like to know more about. Social media analytics, that's really interesting. Sentiment analysis, getting a feel from people's tweets as to whether when they say something is cool, does that mean it's like good cool, or do they mean like it's actually cold? So there's clever stuff in there, and you get into it, and suddenly your passion will mean that you become an expert in something. And again, it's all about getting that engagement in the first interview. If you've got that focus on a particular area, then people will like you and they'll want you to join the team. Work hard. There is absolutely no substitute for working hard. I'm sorry, but the smartest people in the world get nowhere if they don't know how to work hard. And be tenacious and hang in there and grind through it. And we look for something called grit. Grit is more important than intelligence. Grit is that ability to get results when you think this isn't going to work. It just isn't going to work. And you just try a little bit harder and you get it. And there's some people who've got grit, and other people are like, nah, you know what? It's too much trouble. I'm going to do something else. Well, we don't want people like that. And the last thing is be sociable. Be friendly. People hire people they like. It's impossible for someone to give a job to a candidate who's well qualified, but they don't like them. And then they're not supposed to do that. They're supposed to be rational. They're supposed to be businesslike. But honestly, what really happens, I really like that first candidate. Why do you like them? I don't know. I can see them working here. You know, and honestly, that's how people's decisions are really made. That they're easily swung by a friendly personality, a smile, looking for a connection. You know, because the last thing you want to do is to hire somebody that is like completely boring in the office. I don't want people like that. So, so there we go. So that's it from me. Any questions? Anybody? Yes.
Thinking about going global, like opening branches somewhere else?
It's happening. We just bizarrely rank very well in SEO. So when you type in web analytics agency, we're at the top of the page, and that wasn't because we had a strategy around it or anything. It's because, no, it's just like if you've got a website and all you say is like, we do web analytics and here's other things that we do that are web analytics, then obviously the quality score goes up. As a result of that, it doesn't matter where you are in the world, we're on the top of the page somewhere. So we're getting leads in from other countries. And we got loads of leads in from New York, which I thought was really bizarre because I thought there'd be loads of people that do what we do in New York. Apparently not. There aren't. Or at least if they do exist, they're parts of very big agencies and charging very high prices. Plus also, thank you to Brexit, our currency has devalued by 20%. We're now 20% cheaper than we were last year. That's all right. So New York is a possibility, but the other one actually is Hong Kong. That because HSBC is one of our clients, they took me over to Hong Kong 2 weeks ago, and oh my God, there's so much opportunity just in Hong Kong alone. So we're going to start a small office out there, and I think that will be a good base to move out into the rest of Asia. And I see Asia Pacific as having big potential. I think the problem with a lot of the Asia Pacific countries, well, particularly China, is that demand has been so high that they've not had to worry too much about measuring the performance of their websites. It's like they're just selling stuff. It's like there's nothing wrong, they're just selling stuff. And then there'll come a point where they go, oh, hang on a minute, it's not growing as fast as it used to, it's topping out. We need to now start measuring. And at which point we step in. But the Chinese market is very different from ours in terms of the use of different platforms. It's very different from ours. But I think the same rules of analytics still apply. It's just that we've got different platforms to work with. But yeah, I can see it going global. And the bizarre thing is that most other web analytics agencies have no ambition to go outside their own country, which I think is, with the exception of one or two. And I think that's kind of strange because there's so much experience here in the UK, and there's other countries where they can benefit from what we do. And we don't have to move there exactly. We can still do the work in London. It's just in the wrong time zone. We just need a guy locally who handles the client interface stuff. So yeah, it's definitely a possibility. Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm quite interested in like user interfaces and that sort of thing. And I thought the heat maps you did with your cursors were interesting for navigating a website.
Yes.
But obviously that doesn't show really how well the user looks at the website and actually might track an advertisement. So have you thought about bringing in customers and actually using a webcam or something to track their items?
Okay, so so the heat mapping is one side of that software. The other side of it is it's called session recording. So it will record it was already recording the XY coordinates of exactly where that cursor is on the page and sending back a stream of data saying exactly what's happening in real time. And then the software itself can then reconstitute all of that and then play back what looks like a video of that particular session. It's kind of faking it, but you can actually go, all right, show me that user that's having a problem on the web page. And you can see exactly where the cursor is, and you can see what they're filling out in the form, and you can see them clicking on a button and moving to the next page. So you can actually look at you can start with all the users and then go, hang on, this segment of users has got a problem. Let's have a look at some of those sessions and see what they got the problem with. Oh, it's the postcode field. When they type in a particular postcode, it's not being recognized, and therefore it produces an error, because maybe the postcode's too new and our software is a bit old. So that's one thing that that particular solution can do. UX companies, user experience companies, people like Foviance and Foolproof and Web Credible, They have a very traditional model of, and this is sort of like pre-analytics. They will get 20 people in a room, and they will show them the website, and they'll say, what do you think of that? And then they will introduce them to 20 PCs and say, right, here's some eye tracking software, and it's looking at you and what you're looking at, and we're going to make you do it. And then hopefully we'll find something. I've got to be honest with you, if you've got the wrong 20 people, you're not going to find the answer to your problem. You can't put laser tracking on every person that visits your website either. So somewhere in there is an answer. Also, getting 20 people in a room is it takes organization, takes physical space. You've got to pay them £50 just to be there and give them a glass of Chardonnay. You know, I don't know whether it really, that's the way they used to do it, and they still do it, because that's sort of tradition. That's like a market research focus group type approach to it. But I think there are smarter, more analytical ways of getting the result now. Yeah.
Are you finding empirically that clients' budget for analytics is growing?
Yes, absolutely. And it's partly because the problem has become bigger, and it's partly because the value associated with it has grown massively. I noticed a change about 18 months ago, when up until that point, our job was like, can you just sort out this? We don't really want to do it ourselves, but we'd really like some decent reports that we can trust. And we're like, yeah, we'll take care of that for you. And then they would only pay so much for that job to be done. Now what they see is that if we get the data right, that they could really make some smart decisions, and they can probably save themselves a whole load of advertising money that is being wasted. And you wouldn't believe how much money is thrown at Google and at the media networks. It's millions and millions. And I'd say, honestly, 20% of it is a complete waste of money. And if you went to a client and said, we think 20% of your money is wasted, they go, you're probably right. We just don't know which 20%. So analytics, when it starts to be focused in that direction, you know, when it starts saving millions, then people are prepared to pay a few $100,000 for it. Yeah, but it definitely has changed in the last 2 years. Yeah. Yes.
Two questions. So,
Yeah.
Currently your headcount is 15, right?
Yes.
How many of them are actually foreigners?
That is a good question. Of course, it changes because, you know, some people join, some people leave. I think 50%, are overseas. Probably more, actually. Yeah, I mean, about 50%. That's about right. Yeah, I mean, to be honest with you, I don't really care. As long as they're good and they're motivated and they're smart and all that kind of stuff, it doesn't really matter.
What is the biggest advantage of working in a small agency compared to, let's say, if you're a graduate and you're considering whether you want to join a small?
Well, or you could say a small company as opposed to a big company. I think most people in your position would love to have a nice, big, recognizable name on their CV. And I can't blame you. I was exactly the same at that age, because you feel that when you go for your next interview, people go, oh, you worked at Barclays. That's pretty good. Is it? You know, I don't know. It could be, but it might not be. You might have been doing a very boring job in Barclays, but you're thinking, well, at least I got that name on my CV. But actually, any good manager will ask you exactly what you did and what your experience was. And in a small company, you know, you just have to muck in and get it done. You can't wait to be told to do something. So your experience in a small business, you know, grows very, very rapidly, very dynamically. I also say it's a bit like, I go sailing, right? So I like sailing. You can sail in a small boat, or you can go to sea in a big, like, cruiser. Like one of these cruise ships that goes out of Southampton. You could join the cruise ship at the bottom level and you can work your way up. Who knows, one day you might be the captain. In a small boat, you can become captain fairly easily. In a small boat, you'll get cold and you'll get wet and you'll be exhausted, but you did it and you made it go fast. It wasn't like this big machine that was just going to happen anyway. So the sense of personal satisfaction in a small company is far greater than in a big company, because you know, I did that and that happened. In a big company, I did that and oh, I'm not really sure what happened to it. You know, there's a lot of that, there's a lack of satisfaction that you get when you're not involved in a project that's really making a big difference. So that's what I would say. Yeah. Anyone else? Yes.
In terms of the client interaction, is that handled by people who are doing hands-on techie stuff, or is it dedicated to people?
Until we get bigger so that we could afford like full-time client managers, everybody is a client manager. So when I recruit people, that's one of the reasons I'm looking for sociability. It's because they need to be sitting in front of a client and they can't just sit there and go, oh, you know, I feel a bit awkward here. Now, if they're a bit more extrovert and they're a bit confident, then that's great. So I always see it as it's my job to make sure that it doesn't matter whether you're a manager or you're an exec or you're even an intern. When you're sitting in front of the client, if you think something is the right thing to say, then say it. And then it probably will be, because you're not stupid, and you know you maybe lack a little bit of experience. But our job is to empower people to make sure that they all feel confident. So we don't have like a back room where all the really hardcore geeky stuff gets done. Everybody is expected to go on the client side, and also when they do that, then they uncover much more opportunity than I could, because they're sort of on the inside of the client. Yeah, so definitely we're looking, client-facing skills are really important. Yeah. Yes.
I have a question that is more directed to you as an employer.
Yes.
Than being a web analyst.
Yes.
Because it's more like a recruiting question.
Yes.
So you said that you have a degree in English, but you
Yes.
focused on videos about web analytics.
Yes.
And then you told us that you are searching for people that have a degree in web
Yes.
analytics.
Yes, I know. Sounds a bit wrong, doesn't it? Yeah.
So I feel like employers still always, search for that person that has the experience with Google Analytics in specific for, that these programs, and that the people that might have, abilities that are not perfectly directed towards that topic, but might be related. Like you could also maybe employ a former banker, because he has that business sense of what those people look for.
Yep.
And knows the politics and
Yep.
stuff we talked about, but still. I feel like sometimes these people don't get the chance to, open the door to come to their first interview, or they don't make it through their first interview because, there was no project where they worked on Google Analytics, but still they have this business sense.
Yeah.
That could be valuable and profitable to you, but, I feel like programs is something that you can learn, and as you said, business skills is something that you have to have a feeling for.
Yeah.
So why are you still,
For-
talking about business
for the-
necessity?
For the internship, for the internship there are too many students for us, and it's very hard to look at a student CV and go, oh, this is the one, or even this is the one that we should be interviewing. It's very difficult because their experience is geared a different way from what we're used to. So I can look at a person's CV that's had 3 or 4 years experience, and I can tell from just looking at it, oh yeah, definitely not this one, but definitely this one. And and if they've got a varied background, fantastic. It's just when it comes down to how we select the interns, then we're focusing on digital marketing and analytics, because it proves to me that they've made an effort to take a step in this direction. My nightmare scenario is that we take an intern on board and they seem to be really, really good, and they get to the end of the program, we offer them a full-time job, and they go, you know what, I don't really think this is my thing. I want to go off and do something else. I'm like, I've just invested all this time and effort. So you've got to have some way of qualifying whether they're serious or not, whether they're committed. And which is also why I go for masters. I don't have a master's myself, but it actually proves that they've taken that extra step towards the career that they want to do. And I know it's a little bit fake in a way, because clearly they haven't tried a number of different careers, so they're not absolutely sure that this is the right one. But from my point of view, it just reduces the risk. Recruitment is all about just reducing risk. We have taken on board Andy, who is my age, and he spent a career in banking, and he decided to take a sabbatical. He was made redundant. He went to Regent's University to study a master's in digital marketing analytics, and then he came to me and he said, I'm not suitable for the internship course, but I'd still like to work my way up from the bottom within your company. Can you give me a junior level executive position? And then if I'm no good, then you just let me go. And if I am good, then I'll stay. And I said, all right, it's worth a chance. Actually, he had no previous analytics experience in his career. But because I knew that he didn't have a choice in some ways, he had to make a success of this. So actually, from a risk point of view, it was really low. And he had all this amazing experience as a banker. So he knew Lloyd's better than I knew Lloyd's. So why wouldn't I take him? So I'm not saying it has to be, if you tick these boxes, you're in, and if you don't tick those boxes, you're not in. But when you're trying to base your judgment on not a lot of information, then that's a good indicator. That's the clear indicator that we've set. Also, I'll be honest, because I've met you guys now, and hopefully I'll be invited back, and it is much easier for me to go, oh yeah, she was good, he was good. I remember them from the course, so I'm doing that as well. It's not quite as clear cut as that's the bar, and you have to be above it. But it's about the feeling as much as anything. Yeah. Okay. Yes.
Speaking about experience of your employees, what do you prefer, an MSc with not work experience or actual work experience?
Are you talking about for the internship program?
No,
or you?
no, for professional.
Oh, I did. Once people have got a year or two of practical experience, I don't really care what degree they've got.
Okay.
Yeah, honestly, it doesn't make any difference. Yeah, in fact, most people, you write a job description. For every job, there should be a job description, and in there it should say, this candidate should have the following: a master's degree and da da da. I crossed that out because, to be honest, I never, even the interview, I never asked them what did you study in your degree, because I've only got so much time, and I want to know what they've done in their past job. So I'd say it's very useful for you as an individual, and it's very, very useful for you to get your first job. But beyond that, it becomes less and less important. I think bigger companies, bigger corporations, your CV goes into the HR department, and they go, needs a degree. Nope, sorry, not this one. But I'm not looking at stuff like that. Yeah. We're out. Oh, we are. Yeah. Yeah.
I'd like to thank Adrian very much for a very informative and entertaining talk. Hopefully you found it useful. And if you want them, still have some food and drink left. You're very welcome to come and help us. Otherwise, we'll have to take it away somewhere.
Yeah.
So thank you for coming, and I hope you found it interesting.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Thank you. Stop.